All right, cool. So this is part where we pretend we haven't been talking for like 10 minutes. All right.
I know that part. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm here with Jeff, another member of the Online Fitness Business Mentorship. And how long have you been coaching, man?
So on and off for about 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, in person, less time than online. I actually started online and then through, various other coaches pushing me to coach more in person. I started coaching more in person. At first it was only nutrition, and then I started getting more into the training aspect and wanting to write better programs for clients and just kind of learn the ins and outs of different movements and different form and technique, and work on my own form and technique and work on my own lifts. So I knew that that was somewhere that I lacked knowledge. So yeah, over the last about year and a half, I've been training in person, which is a weird time to start training in person. But
Mhm.
but yeah, man, just started training in person so that I could write better programs for my online clients and just kind of understand where people are at, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's kind of rewind. So yeah, tell me like how you first got into fitness and then how your journey has like evolved from then to what it is now.
Yeah, man. I feel like unlike several other coaches I've spoken with in the mentorship, just growing up trying all kinds of different shit. Like just can I curse on here?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. I've been known to drop some F bombs. All right.
Yeah, we're
Um,
all good.
so so yeah, man, just growing up, I had this like really, really strong passion for food, strong passion for culinary arts, right? Like my mom and me would spend a lot of time in the kitchen growing up, and she's Italian and I had an Italian grandma, and so like I would hang out with them and they would show me how to cook from a young age. Not only that, but I have both my parents were super busy and a lot of times we're not home to cook dinner. So I knew that I had to make food for myself, and I didn't really enjoy eating that like packaged frozen fucking banquet meals. So I like wanted to cook good shit for myself, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if I was going to make a grilled cheese sandwich, like let's do it on sourdough with like the good cheese and like make it bomb, you know? So
Mhm.
so I learned how to cook from a young age, and I was really, really into that. I was really, really into the culinary side of things. And I went to school, and none of the classes, none of the courses interests me. None of them. And the only thing that was interesting to me at the time was cooking and nutrition, and like learning about how different foods affect you and how different foods affect make you feel and things like that. And I just wanted to learn more about it. So through my own research of like watching YouTube videos, reading articles and things like that, I eventually, long story short, I dropped out of high school because I was like, this is not for me. Can't sit still and listen to all of this information that I feel like I'm never going to use. And so I dropped out of high school, and I started actually working at Subway. Now, granted to say, dude, like addiction and drug addiction was a huge part of my story, huge part of
Mhm.
my story. So that's something that from age, I'll say 13 to 22 was like it got progressively worse and worse and worse. And by the time I had dropped out of high school, I like dropped out and became like my addiction had gotten worse and worse and worse. But at the same time, I was also working at a young, like I was working at age 16 in a kitchen, and I enjoyed it. It was probably one parts of my life that I did enjoy, because I got like a break from my crazy life outside of the kitchen, and I went into the kitchen and I just zoned in and I was good at it, and it felt like I was on point. And so from there, worked in various restaurants, and at the same time decided to get clean, decided to get off of drugs because it was making my life unmanageable, and eventually led to jail and treatment centers and things like that. Crazy stories. But eventually got clean at age 22 and decided that I wanted something different for my life. And I got into a kind of like a halfway house. It was like a sobriety house. I got
Mhm.
into a sobriety house at age 22, and there were other guys my age in there, and they wanted to stay clean as well. So a few of them lifted weights. And as a matter of fact, there was like this room that it was like basically they converted this house into like a 7 bedroom, like halfway house. And it was
Mhm.
like, it was not a 7 bedroom house. You know what I mean? It was like a 3 bedroom house. And it had like a bunch of random rooms that they put curtains up, and like it was ghetto. But I lived in this curtain room, and there was a bench press right outside of my room, and like these guys would just be hitting like, a bunch of plates and just be getting it, and a lot of them were like out of prison and shit. So it was intimidating to me to even think about like asking them to help me lift, right? But eventually they would see that like I had an interest in it, and they would like teach me, oh, this is what you should do. You should start with this much weight, start with that much weight. Oh, like get a good position on the bench. So I kind of started benching, and then I eventually got a gym membership, and kind of I had a free personal training session at the gym membership, and he showed me a routine, and I basically did that same routine for like the first 2 years, just did the same thing. I didn't know about progressive overload. I didn't know about nutrition as far as like calories in, calories out. Like I understood like nutritional properties of foods, and like um, the science behind nutrition, but I didn't understand the science behind weight loss. I didn't understand the science behind muscle building. So at that time, I think I was working at Quiznos, and the gym I was working out at was right across the street. So I would go work out, and then I'd go into my shift at Quiznos. I would just eat. I thought, you got to eat to get big, right? So I'd
Yeah.
eat a
Yeah.
big ass sandwich at Quiznos, and like not understanding that the calories in that sandwich were like probably 1,400 calories in one sandwich. And then I'd have 2 or 3 other meals with that as well. So I got pretty big, dude. I got pretty, not big in a good way. I got
Mhm.
I got pretty fat. I got
Yeah.
pretty soft, So um eventually I was like, what's going on, dude? I'm going to the gym. I'm training all the time, and like I just keep getting fatter, Like
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on, dude?
Yeah.
So at one point I had like weighed the most I'd ever weighed. And I knew something needed to change. And I started going to the community college here in Central Oregon. I started going to taking classes in nutrition and getting into the exercise science program here, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be a chef, but at the same time, like there wasn't a lot of money in it, and the restaurant industry can be really kind of a toxic place for somebody that's in recovery, that is a former addict. So um I bounced in and out of restaurant jobs. I went to college. I bounced in and out of just learning all of this new information. And I mean, trying every single fad diet you can think of, dude. Like, I didn't understand the evidence-based research on calories in, calories out. I didn't understand what a calorie deficit was. I thought that if you ate super quote unquote clean, then it would mean that you would get shredded. Like I remember reading The Warrior Diet by Ori Hofmeckler. I don't know if you ever heard of him,
Yeah.
but
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
yeah, pretty much one of the early books on intermittent fasting, because I was like watching a lot of Elliot Hulse videos,
Mhm.
and really like, and I love Elliot Hulse for his training videos, but his nutrition information was so over the top and confusing. So I read I read books by Paul Chek, and like a lot of his books talk about the quality of foods, but they don't talk about the quantity of foods, right? And like I looked at these guys, and they were ripped and like super muscular. I was like, dude, there's got to be something there about how that's done. Well,
Yeah. It's like if they look that way, they must know what they're doing. Yeah, they must have
Exactly.
like the secret. Yeah.
Exactly. And we see that on TikTok all the time, right? It's like all these coaches who look like fitness models, but then the information that they put out is not like they don't actually know what they're talking about.
Mhm.
So long story short, I'll fast forward and in about 20 2018. So 2018, I started finding more evidence-based content, right? Like I started reading research and actually finding more coaches who were talking about calories in, calories out. Like Lane Norton was one of the first ones that I that I started hearing from. And then I saw Jordan Sides content, and then I saw Mike Matthews, and I started looking into his books. I started reading books, and Eric Helms and his nutrition book that he put out, and just kind of learning about all this stuff. And then like the space on YouTube was getting more diverse. And I was always somebody who watched a lot of YouTube. So then you had guys like Jeff Nippard coming in who were talking about a calorie deficit. And, I started listening to specific YouTubers about specific things and then discarding their information on other things. Like
Mhm.
Elliot Hulse was awesome for me to listen to about deadlift technique, right? But or like fixing a anterior pelvic tilt. Like he knew what he was talking about there. But when it came to nutrition, I would listen to more evidence-based coaches like Jeff Nippard or Eric Helms or somebody like that. So just started to fill my brain up with different angles of content around nutrition. And uh and I mean, I had tried a ketogenic diet, I had tried a plant-based diet, I had tried a vegan ketogenic diet, I had tried 72-hour fasts per week, I had tried alternate day fasting, 20-hour a day fasting. I had tried, like, you name it, dude. I have
Mhm.
tried it. Besides like the HCG diet, which that sounds terrible, but I mean, all the way from crashing my metabolism and then reverse dieting back up because I thought I need to reverse diet, and then eating 1,200 calories a day as like a 200-pound male, like just crazy stuff that I had tried because I was so desperate and there's so much misinformation out there. And then eventually in 2018, like I really, like, I think Jordan Side was one of the first ones where I was like, dude, his content is so simple and resonates with me so much. Like at that point, I was afraid to eat fruit. I thought it would spike my insulin and it would instantly spill into fat storage, right? We know today that you need to be in a calorie surplus in order for you to spill into fat storage, right? So
Mhm.
that's what he kept talking about. And he just kept saying the same message: calorie deficit, calorie deficit. Fruit doesn't make you fat. Eating after 8 p.m. doesn't make you fat. Like all that stuff was stuff that I had heard in the past from other people to not be true. And then him basically dispelling all these myths, it like blew my mind because then all these other coaches were agreeing with him. And I was like, oh, this guy's like actually not crazy. He's actually just using scientific research uh to put good information out there. And I was like, God, man, I wish there wasn't so much misinformation and misleading stuff in the fitness space. So then I started putting out content and basically, doing my own research, putting out my own content, joining the mentorship, creating my website, going super hard on Instagram at first for like the first 3 years, and then
Mhm.
eventually getting on TikTok, and now like almost having twice as big of a following on TikTok as I do on Instagram, although it's a lot easier to gain a following on TikTok. But yeah, just growing and growing and growing as a coach, growing as a person, in-person training so that I can write better training programs, really reading up on training programs and all that. And here we are today, man. And it's just been, dude, I'm so grateful that I found the mentorship, other great coaches like yourself, and just people who have a desire to help others so that we don't get misled into misinformation again, and people don't have to spend their entire lives going down this really frustrating rabbit hole that I went down. So yeah, that's pretty much the story, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, dude. It was just frustrating, like I was
Mhm.
sick of trying everything and feeling like nothing's working. Like I really thought something was wrong with me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the like biggest things I've realized about fitness is that like you just have to be, it's like, yeah, it's like a part of your journey that you really can't change, because a lot of us, like, we go through it, and it's just until like a certain thing just suddenly like clicks, you can hear the same message. Like now that, like, when you were telling me your story, it got me thinking back about my fitness journey, and it's just, I probably was hearing like the correct information the entire time, but it wasn't until, like, years later down the road that it like suddenly clicked. And it's that journey that I went through myself that kind of reminds me, like, I need to keep making content. I need to keep saying the same things over and over and over again until it clicks with someone. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man. It's as coaches, we get burnt out on saying calorie deficit, right? It's like,
Yeah.
man, how many times do I have to say this? Like people are probably getting sick of me saying this, but then it's like, I'll get a comment on that video that says, can you explain what a calorie deficit is? And I'm like,
Yeah.
here we go. I
Yeah.
will. Yeah, I'm gonna do that because this person apparently doesn't know what Google is and can't just Google calorie deficit. They want to hear it from somebody who can simplify it for them, because maybe they search for it on Google and it's like there's all these confusing articles, and most of like the top articles on Google are going to be from companies like Healthline or something like that like goes into this long article, and maybe that person just wants to hear somebody like me and you just simplify it.
Yeah.
And it is like, it is a simple concept, right?
Mhm.
But there's so many subtle nuances to that concept that you could talk about it for the rest of your career and really hit different points, right? Like we
Mhm.
know, okay, you need to eat less calories than you burn, and you need to, you know, you need to consume less calories than your body burns. Like that's a really simplified way of saying it, but there's so
Mhm.
many subtle nuances that go into a calorie deficit. And then how do you stay full in a calorie deficit? How long should you be in a calorie deficit? What if you're in a calorie deficit, but you start having low energy and your training starts slipping and you start losing strength and you feel like crap, like what do you do
Mhm.
then? And there's just so many subtle nuances to being in a calorie deficit, and in so many ways that people think they're in a calorie deficit, but they're not.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. People are like, I'm in a calorie deficit and not losing weight. And you're like, you're not in a calorie
Yeah.
deficit.
It's like, I'm sorry. Yeah, actually, it reminds me, I made a post. This was like a couple months ago. It was using one of the sounds on TikTok, and
Mhm.
then it was like, I was like quoting them. They're like, I swear I'm on a calorie deficit, but I'm not losing weight. And then and it shifts over like me. I'm like, well, you're actually not in a calorie deficit. And then that post like actually picked up a lot of traction, and I got so much hate for like saying that. Yeah. There's so many comments. They're like, "Oh my God, you're just oversimplifying a calorie deficit." Blah blah blah. And, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, man. Like yeah, I get people in my comment section every day. And it's like, dude, did you ever think that you would have such a large platform to speak on? Like,
No, I did not.
did you ever think that, dude? Because like when you really think about what like 1,000 people looks like that are all watching your stuff, like 1,000 people, dude. And then you get up to like 10,000 people, and that's like, I think that's like a football stadium, right? Or
Yeah.
like something like 20,000, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
that's like a football stadium of people that you're talking to every single day. And then like times that by 5, you're talking to 5 football stadiums full of people, bro.
Mhm. Yeah, that's insane.
Like what crazy times we live in. So in that 5 football stadiums of people, you're going to have probably like half of a football stadium they've been watching Dr. Fung videos and reading his books, or they've been watching Dr. Oz or
Yeah.
whatever, dude, and just like listening to total bullshit science and very cherry picked stuff. And even if there is scientific research behind it, very cherry picked studies that neglect the 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 primary principles of a calorie deficit, right? It's like the reason fasting is working for you is because you're in a calorie deficit. The reason low carb or keto is working for you is because you're in a calorie deficit. I'm somebody who used to think that hormones trumped energy balance. I used to think that. If you didn't spike your insulin, if you didn't eat carbs and sugar all day, and then you could eat in a calorie surplus and lose fat. Like that's what I thought, because that's what all these other influencers and doctors, if you want to call them that, they started to push that message. And like I'm like, well, they're doctors. Then you look and you're like, a lot of these guys are chiropractors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not qualified in nutrition. I'm not saying that all chiropractors are not qualified in nutrition, dude, but like I'm not gonna take all of my nutrition information from a chiropractor. Like when there's dietitians and people who have masters in nutritional science online, that I can also consume their content. Like I think listening to a chiropractor talk about nutrition, for the most part, there's more qualified people out there for me to receive that information from. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is something that has definitely come about like a lot within the past couple of years. Like you have all these like experts in other fields just all of a sudden coming into the fitness nutrition space and started giving advice. Meanwhile, they like don't know what they're talking about, and they're an expert in their other field, but they think that they can all of a sudden be like qualified to give like advice.
You're like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm sure that you're great at cracking my back and, adjusting the length of my hips, but like, I don't need to do a food allergy test with you. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like rubbing some like, I'm shitting on chiropractors, but I actually have a dope chiropractor. He's a good dude. And when I talk about nutrition, he's like, dude, yes, I love your message. Like he follows me on social media, and he's like, I'm learning so much from your content. I'm like, dude, like that's crazy, because a lot of chiropractors are pushing their knowledge of nutrition on their clients and trying to sell them on extra like packages, make extra money off of them. This guy's just like, look, I stay in my lane. I do what I do. I have supplements on the shelf here because I believe in supplementation, and a lot of the supplements that he pushes are like, they're some like herbal supplements and things that, maybe have less research around them, but like he claims that they work well. So, I'm not going to be like, these are bullshit supplements. Take these off your shelf, like that's cool, dude. Like, if these supplements work for you, that's awesome. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to be taking some herb that doesn't have a lot of research behind it, because I don't know how it reacts with everything else that I take. So
Yeah. And also I think part of it has to do kind of with like the ego. Like obviously as like a doctor, like, I studied like the past 8 years of my life. I studied my ass off. I don't want to have this patient in front of me like who's asking for advice and say, I don't know. Yeah.
Some of my favorite people ever, dude, are the ones who are extremely knowledgeable, and when they don't know something, they're like, you know what, I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that. I'm going to look into that. Right. And I've learned the value of being able to do that as a coach. Just yesterday I had somebody on my Facebook page who like, when I post stuff on Instagram, it automatically posts to my Facebook, right? Because I'm like, why not? Get some helpful information out to people that I know, and maybe help somebody. Well, I made a post about how people are still afraid to eat fruit, and I had this guy that I know, dude, like I used to know him like maybe 8 or 10 years ago, and he's commented on my stuff before and been like, great post, super helpful. Well, yesterday he decided to just be a troll and just be like, you know what? This is dangerous information. Like, if you eat a bowl of fruit every day, you're gonna get fat as fuck. And that's what he said, dude. And I was like, what? Where are you coming from with this? Like, but this is what people think. People think that eating fruit makes you fat. And it's like, Jordan says this all the time. Like, no one got fat from eating too many fucking apples.
Yeah.
Like, people overeat on very palatable foods, right? Like sugar, salt, and fat. High sugar, salt, and fat are a deadly combination for hyper palatable foods that you can't stop eating. Like foods like a Reese's peanut butter cup. Dude, I surrendered to Reese's peanut butter cups, bro, because if I have a bag of those mini Reese's for like Halloween,
Oh man.
I'm for sure gonna be in a calorie surplus for the month of October. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
from that one bag of
Hmm.
fucking Reese's that's in my closet. And I've tried to like, be like, I'm just gonna have 2 a day to manage my cravings, but it's like, dude, I always have like fucking way too many,
Yeah.
There's always gonna be foods like that I just know that, hey, if I go and have this, I ain't gonna stop.
Mhm. Yeah. Cool. So this actually kind of segues like so what do you think are like the top three tips to manage like cravings?
Yeah, that's interesting. That is a good segue. So, number one, I would say don't completely restrict foods. Like, don't ever completely like I had a client yesterday who said, I've been craving chips and chocolate lately, and it's been really hard for me to resist. And what I told her was, okay, cool. I want you to have one serving of chips and one serving of chocolate, log it into your calories, and fit it into your calories every single day this week. And she was like, what? You're actually telling me to eat chips and chocolate? I'm like, yes, one serving of chips and chocolate, that's going to be like whatever, 230 calories or something like that. You can fit that into your daily calories and still lose weight. And because you know that you can have it every single day, there's going to be less of a chance of you binging on these hyper palatable foods. So that's something that works very well is number one. And that's called exposure therapy, right? Or I think that's what it's called, but basically exposing yourself to the stimulus as much as you want whenever you want, but having a limit, not as much as you want, but having a limit on how often you're going to have this food and how much, right? But being able to include it every day. And then number two, I would say just improving that relationship with food and not labeling foods as good or bad helps with cravings a lot because chips are not bad for you. Chocolate is not bad for you. It's the dose makes the poison, right? And not that those things are poison, but that's just a phrase. So if you're eating chips and chocolate for like 80% of your day, yeah, that's not healthy. But if you're using an 80-20 approach, then it's totally fine, and you'll probably see that the rest of your meals will be more whole food based, and you'll actually see improvements in your health
Mhm.
through eating that way. So I guess that's two tips. Third one is eat the fucking chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Solid tip. Easy to remember.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah, to get into that bit more specifically, what about trigger foods? What do you
Trigger foods.
yeah.
Okay.
Like like for example, like you with the Reese's peanut butter cups.
Reese's peanut butter cups. Yeah, man. So what I literally had to do with that is, and this has been a struggle like for years. Reese's peanut butter cups has been like my kryptonite. So I love them, but I know for me, if it's gonna be in the house, it's gonna be in my mouth. Like that's rule number one. If it's in the house, it's gonna be in my mouth. Like I will sneak it. I'll try to track it, but like I'll find myself mindlessly snacking on foods like that. So I try to not have them in the house, but as my relationship with food improved, um, I have a huge bag of like, another thing is like those kettle corn, like popcorn, the like the super sugary, like glazed popcorn, like kettle corn. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kettle corn. I have a huge bag of kettle corn from Costco right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear to God, a year ago, dude, I wouldn't have been able to control myself around this. I've had this bag for like 2 months now. I forget it's even there, but I know that I can track it and put it into my calories anytime I want to. But here's the thing is I can only have like a cup of it for like 260 calories. Whereas if I pop my own popcorn, I have like an air popper. If I make my own popcorn, I can have a huge bowl the size of my head for like 120 calories. So I think it's just coming down to like tracking my calories long enough to know what's worth it and what's not worth it. And I'd much rather have like a bowl of protein ice cream than like that's going to keep me full, satiated, kill that sweet tooth craving than like have 2 little tiny Reese's peanut butter cups. I just know for me that sometimes the Reese's peanut butter cups is the right answer. And sometimes I will go to the store and I will buy a single pack of Reese's and put it in my calories because I just want it. And then sometimes I will make like a peanut butter chocolate chip like protein ice cream that it's going to help me hit my protein. It's got some fiber in there. It's got a lot of volume, so it's going to keep me full for hours. So yeah, man, it's just learning different recipes and learning how different foods make me feel, and then also how different foods are going to help me reach my goals. I have an ability today to play the tape forward. And that's something I always tell my clients, like play the tape forward. Like think about how what you're doing today is going to affect you in the future. And once you learn that, that's something I learned when I got clean is like think about playing the tape forward. If you know, picking up that drink or picking up that drug is going to lead you back to a really unmanageable life, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And not saying that picking up a Reese's peanut butter cup is going to lead me down a path of like being up to 250 pounds again. But it's those habits once I start slipping back into old habits of not tracking stuff, not holding myself accountable. And then it's, you know, pretty soon it's pretty easy to start packing on the pounds again. And then not only that, but I make content around this stuff. So if I'm not living it, if I'm not practicing what I preach, then I feel like a phony. And you're going to see a lot less content from me. You're going to see a lot less podcasts, a lot less YouTube, a lot less everything from me. So I got to practice what I preach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and for sure. I think a lot of people like to see or they like to follow someone who actually like walks the walk as well as like talking the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's easier to relate to, you know, somebody that doesn't walk around with a 6-pack all year round and somebody that, you know, I'm closer to where they're at than somebody who's like a fitness model who works with like 100+ clients in a group on Facebook or something like that. And it's like, you know, I'm just a single guy and I have the ability to really connect with my clients one-on-one. And I try and do that every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, that actually kind of reminds me, do you know who Joel Seedman is?
Joel Seedman, no.
No,
You said Seaman or Seedman?
Seedman.
Okay, I was like, that's a terrible last name, dude. I'm sure that guy got terrorized in high school.
Yeah, but Dr. Joel Seedman, like recently he's been popping up on my Explore page on Instagram, and he does all these like crazy movements, and yeah, they're like just crazy. I think they're kind of based around like his concept of like training muscles and at like 90-degree joint angles. So all the movements he does, it's like literally like a half-assed range of motion movement. And then anyone
you gotta
anytime
send me this. You gotta
I'll shoot you a DM later. But anytime anyone ever like brings up, it's like, so yeah, it's like this is actually false. Like the research shows that you should be training a muscle through its like full active range of motion. Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, just go read my book, go buy my book, or like yeah, or it's like I work with NFL athletes, so that's my justification.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow, dude. who's, I don't know if you follow, do you follow Ben Patrick from the knees over toes guy?
Yeah, I've seen him.
So that's like the opposite of what he's kind of preaching, is like he's more talking about, yeah, like even go past that full range of motion, knees over the toes, like to really strengthen up that knee joint. And like those, I've been doing some of those split squats that he does where your whole hamstring is covering your calf. And my ankle mobility has improved so much since starting doing that. And I've had knee pain for a while now, and dude, my squats have improved, my front squats have improved. Um, so I think training through that full range of motion, like even further than you think you can, and then also having regressions on like how to reach that full range of motion is important. I think that's kind of the way that we were meant to move more athletically and more through different planes. So I think there's a lot of benefit to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. What do you think about the knees over toes myth?
Dude, I think that's been a myth for a long time, man. Like, and I was always told like never have your knees tracking over your toes. It's terrible. But it's like if you're gonna get into an ass to grass squat, or a deep front squat or something, like your knees are probably gonna travel over your toes. Or just on a decent looking lunge, or a good Bulgarian split squat, like your knees are probably gonna go over those toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where that came from, right? Like
Yes.
who makes this shit up?
Yeah, seriously. And then yeah, I've been hearing it for like the past like 10 years. Like it was definitely a lot more common back then, but like nowadays, like you still hear it like here and there. And I'm just like, who keeps like spreading this?
Yeah. I think it's older trainers, trainers that don't do their continuing education, and they're not really in the industry as far as on social media and things like that. They've just been working at, 24-hour fitness for the last 15 years. And, they're just stuck in their ways. They're like, no, we're only training hypertrophy, and, we're only using this rep range. And, they don't know anything about periodization or actual like strength programming, and they only use like machines and cables, and maybe like barely any dumbbells, and it's, I don't know. I'd like to hear like what's your training philosophy, as far as like I know that you're a fan of strength programming as well, but like do you do a mixture of strength and hypertrophy, or do you mostly use strength programming?
Yeah, so my stance on that has definitely changed. So in terms of like general recommendation, I recommend that most people when they start out just focus on getting stronger, and just simply through that process of getting stronger, you will build more muscle. But as you get more and more advanced, you'll kind of have to periodize like switching between strength and hypertrophy. And yeah, this is something that I've only like learned like over the past few years. And it's
Mm,
just basically that strength is more of a neurological adaptation, whereas hypertrophy is more of a physiological adaptation. Like the muscles themselves are adapting, whereas strength is just basically you're bettering like the connection between like the neuromuscular, uh, the joint. Yeah, the neuromuscular joint.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So basically your central nervous system is kind of learning, like it's adapting and it's learning, and that's how you're getting stronger. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
just the your central nervous system sending those signals to your muscles to like fire.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's interesting. And, working at, a powerlifting gym and kind of seeing how they program as well. It's like there's a lot of hypertrophy stuff for good like powerlifting programming, because their accessory movements are going to be, in that 12 to 15 or even 15 to 20 rep range. So kind of seeing that and being like, oh wait, well, why are we doing this, and asking questions and just kind of learning on all that. It's just like, oh wait, there's like, you can get the best of both worlds. You can improve your strength, improve, that mind muscle connection at the same time. And in a good program, you'll have, one phase of your program will be, you know lower reps, heavier weights, really getting into that strength, really adapting to that strength. And then in other phases of that programming will be strictly hypertrophy, because when when you have muscles that are larger, that eventually, they can push more weight. And if you're stronger, then using that hypertrophy range with more tension and more weight on the bar, like you're gonna see better gains anyways. So even people who are training for aesthetics, it's important for them to train for strength as well. So I think there's like very, very one-sided people who kind of look at things like, well, I'm either training like a bodybuilder, or I'm either training like a power lifter. And it's like, you don't have to choose one or the other. As a matter of fact, like most bodybuilders who have incredible physiques, they are able to squat a ton of weight, or they're able to bench press a lot of weight. Now
Yeah.
they may talk about, just creating that tension and keeping that tension on the muscle. So, a lot of them may not squat, but they may use the hack squat, or they may use, instead of the bench press, they may use dumbbell bench press, or they may use a Smith machine bench or something like that. But a lot of them are very strong still, and you'll see that. So I think it's important to kind of look at that as well. Like, you don't have to be all one or the other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
Dude, I love podcasts so much, because it's like you come on here and you just kind of bullshit, but at the same
Mhm.
time, you're like, you have a list of things that you want to talk about. And then, but it's real time. Like, a lot of people don't edit their podcasts, a lot of people don't like
Mhm.
cut clips out. That's why I love Jordan and Mike's podcast, dude, because they
Mhm.
will literally just bullshit for like 30 minutes before they even get to any of the questions.
Yeah.
But it's cool, man. Yeah,
Mhm.
I like their podcast.
Yeah. How long have you been podcasting for?
um So I started podcasting last year. I decided to start a podcast around quarantine. So like,
Mhm.
whatever that was that March last year? I don't even remember. Last year was such a blur. But yeah, it was actually good for my coaching business, because at that time I originally started my podcast trying to bring strangers on who had like lost weight, who had like been successful with losing weight, and I would bring them on the podcast and just kind of talk to them and ask them about their journey and how they did it. And then, like, some people would be struggling with their weight, and I would, like, basically on the podcast, I would give them like a program. I'd be like, well, here's what I want you to do for, the first month. And, I'd kind of
Mhm.
give them a program. And it was fun, but it was also really, really hard to keep up with. It was hard to find new people every single week. And then more recently started having coaches come on and talk about their journey, because I feel like that's helpful for people who want to listen, who are just everyday, enthusiasts, or people just trying to lose a little bit of weight, or people who are, new or intermediate to lifting. It's always nice to hear from different coaches and hear their journeys and different perspectives. And then more recently, I started doing like a daily podcast. It was like a challenge for myself. So I did like a daily podcast for, I think, like 60 days, maybe a little bit longer than that. And like, through doing that, I got a ton of new listeners. And then I think once summertime hit, my podcast just like completely took a dive. And it's funny because Jordan, who has, probably one of the biggest podcasts of anybody that I know, he told me that his podcast took like a 30% dive in his listeners as
Mhm.
well. So
Are you talking about this past summer or last summer?
yeah, this past summer, because
Gotcha.
things are more open and people are traveling and there's just less people listening to podcasts. Whereas last year, people were really, really listening to podcasts. Like, my first couple podcasts did really, really well. And then and then, yeah, just over the summertime, I noticed things started to slow down. So yeah, it's been kind of less motivating for me to want to create podcast
Yeah.
episodes, but
Mhm.
I'm still just trying to get to my one a week is what I'm putting out right now. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm also going for one a week. And yeah, when I first started out, just like talking to myself and like, yeah, only recently, I think you're actually my first guest on here.
Oh,
I
let's
was like, yeah.
go.
Yeah, I'm just like, I think it's about time because it's like one, I'm just sick of sitting in my apartment room, like talking to myself. And also like,
Sick of hearing my own voice. Yeah, dude, I understand.
and, and yeah, and also like, I feel like bringing on another person, it just kind of gives you like time to like bounce off ideas off of each other and like actually have a more naturally flowing conversation. Whereas like, with yourself, you just get through this and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And when I was doing the daily podcast where I was talking to myself, like I eventually turned it into a walk and talk podcast where I literally threw on these Apple EarPod headphones and I turned on my phone and I recorded an episode while I was walking around my neighborhood. And like it was kind of nice because I'm getting steps, I'm creating helpful content, and then I'm also like there was something about just walking around where, yeah, I look like a crazy person probably to all my neighbors and stuff, but I didn't care because I was like, you know what, people are messaging me telling me these podcasts are helping, and they start their day with the daily podcast. Granted, I'm not doing that anymore because it was just too much. I was trying to take on too much, and as I commonly do, try to take on too much. But it's just like we tell our clients, when they're trying to lose weight, it's like, just take on a sustainable amount of calories, a sustainable amount of workouts per week, a sustainable step goal, like, hit these markers, but make it sustainable that you can do it for years and years and years. So it's the same thing with creating helpful content. There's times that we should go hard when maybe we're feeling it. We're like, man, I'm in content mode. I'm in the
Mhm.
me and Andy say like, oh, I'm in the cave. I'm in the cave right now. That means
Mhm.
like I'm going dark mode on content. Like I'm creating 50 videos in like 2 days. And I'm like writing articles, recording YouTube. Like I'm doing everything just because I'm feeling super, super on point with like my creative space. And sometimes people don't realize that being an online fitness coach is so much content creation. You're no longer just a coach, you're a content creator, and that's part of your job title. And if you don't accept that, I feel like you're not going to make it in this industry. So
Mhm.
that, and I'm sure that's kind of a driving force, is that like when you create content, people watch it, people listen, people comment. And so yeah, like you're one of those people, man, that like on TikTok, I'll watch your stuff and I'll be like, oh yeah, like I like what he did here. Super clear. And I noticed too, like some of your videos, you'll do them while you're getting your steps in now. So it's like
Yeah.
you're like, something just came to my mind. I'm gonna make a quick TikTok about this, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then part of that is also like, I'm just getting busier and busier, like trying to manage like in person as well as online. And yeah, it's just like, that's kind of like one of the few times I have in my day where I can like film content. And granted, I do look like a crazy person just like talking to my phone as I'm walking down the trail.
Totally. Are you in Seattle?
I'm in Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay. Right
Yeah.
above Portland.
Yeah.
Dude, you're super close. Only like I think 3 hours from where I'm at.
Yeah. Where are you at?
I'm in Bend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're on
But
the other side of the Cascades.
I'm actually considering moving into Portland though, because rent here is just crazy. It's crazy high. So,
Mhm.
and I know Portland's still expensive and whatnot, but Vancouver is actually cool because it's right on the border of Washington and Portland, right? You're like right there.
Yeah.
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 How do you like it? How's the like nature and stuff like that out there? Is it pretty cool?
It's awesome. So I think like Vancouver is kind of like a more small town version of Portland. That's
Yeah.
what I hear a lot of people say here. It's like Portland, but like a lot more spread out. Like it's a small city, but it's like more spread out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
So
nice. You get a little bit of like the city feel as well as kind of more like a suburban area.
yeah.
If it like if that's like a good way to put it.
No, it makes
Yeah.
sense. So what, are you like 15 minutes from Portland or something like that?
Yeah, pretty much 10-15 minute drive when there's like barely any traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
just driving
work
with the bridge.
do you work in the city at a gym, or do you work in Vancouver?
I work in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of gym
Mhm.
is it?
So right now I'm at 24 Hour Fitness, but I am currently in the process of transitioning to like going independent.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing more of a contractor work with a smaller gym or something.
Just like training people outside.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's what's
Mhm.
up, man. Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the process of I need to get into a new spot, but part of that is I want to convert my garage into a gym, and I have all the equipment already. It's just right now my garage is just too small to do it. So I'm looking to get into a new place to be able to train, just like 3 or 4 clients, something like that per week. Something light, but yeah, really, really focused on that one-on-one. And because going to a gym for a lot of people is just like it's intimidating and it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
that's something that, I didn't realize that before I became an in-person coach. I didn't realize that going to the gym and going into the dumbbell area for some people is like super intimidating. So, having that gym at your house, I feel like that's nice. Or even outside, that's a great idea.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've thought about doing that too. Just like renting out like a house. That way I can have like a space for like all my equipment and like don't have to pay overhead and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Cool, man. Well, yeah, do you have any more questions for me?
I don't think so. That was a pretty solid session.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what time is this? 9 o'clock? Oh, we went like a full hour.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, time flies, man, especially when you're just like telling your story. And
Mhm.
I'm sure I rambled on for like 20 plus minutes about my story. But I think I have done a lot more rambling. I've condensed it a lot because
Yeah.
I've gone on other people's podcasts and they asked me to tell their story. I went into like my whole addiction, like like the darkest, most fucking fucked up shit. I went into like the darkest, most fucked up shit because, dude, I'm used to telling my story of like my addiction and how I got clean. Cause like I used to
Yeah.
go into like the county jail and speak to like the inmates and shit. And so that was part of my thing, was like talk about where I came from and what it's like now, just to
Mhm.
like help tell people like, hey, this is possible. You can do this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But now you kind
yeah.
of have to like streamline it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people who come on, they're listening to a fitness podcast. They don't necessarily want to hear me ramble for 30 minutes about like the fucking darkest shit
Yeah.
about
The
my
depths
addiction.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not what they're here for. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, it's it's definitely interesting though, and that's why I can talk about it for so long, just because
Mhm.
like it relates to fitness. It all is the connection that I had to make. And getting into fitness, getting into nutrition was a huge part of me overcoming my addiction as well. So that's why I included in there, because I feel like everyone's story is powerful and everyone has a story. It doesn't matter if you came from like a really fucked up dark place, or you're just a person who decided to make a change because they never thought it was possible. So anybody can do it. That's the thing, is anybody can do it. And you don't need to rely on like motivation and just have this fire under your ass all the time. You just put in the small steps every single day. You push through on days you really don't want to fucking go to the gym. You just push through and get it done. If you need to take a scoop of pre-work, take a scoop of that Legion Pulse,
Mhm.
and and just get it done, man.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, shameless plug. Good
Yeah.
pre-workout though.
Yeah.
They've got a good pre-workout. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Awesome closing kind of final motivation words from Jeff.
Hell
So
yeah.
yeah, we'll finish this off with where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Jeffrey Pachtman, JeffreyPachtman Fitness. And then it's the same thing on TikTok, Jeff Pachtman Fitness. And the podcast that I run is called Progress Not Perfection. You can find that on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. I don't even know what Stitcher is, but I heard somebody say it one time. But yeah,
Yeah.
find me on Stitcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, man. Oh, YouTube is Chef Jeffrey's Kitchen because it's kind of more of a recipe based YouTube channel. So yeah,
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Glad to have you on here and
absolutely. Thanks for
finally
having
get
me.
to meet you and talk to you.
Oh yeah, man. Austin, I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. All right.